that is going to guide and lead on who is saying what, who is the face of what, and how is it said. Because if you don't say that, then we are just going to go and wear new clothes, but we haven't really taken a bath. We are just covering up. So we need to do a very, very deliberate constructive surgery and say the custodians of information, the custodians of communication, who are they? Are they valid? What governs them? How are they saying this? And I'm sure by then the government will also be very interested in engaging professionals, those who are guided by a certain code of conduct, those who know what they're doing, those who have been subjected to the litmus test, and those who understand the science and the art behind communications and public relations. Because indeed, depending on how you look at it, communication and public relation is a science and is an art as well. So looking at my last submission on the importance of this would be, we also have the Constitution also says that we need to have public participation. Public participation, we are seeing more and more of it, a process that is undertaken by institutions and other government bodies. But, Honorable Chair, there is no proper framework to public participation. And when you look at public participation and how it is done, information and communication plays a very vital role in the public education and advocacy of public participation. And therefore, looking at this, having a communication strategy around how public participation is taken up, and the framework of it, how is it done? How is it funded? Is there a process that says, do we have monitoring and evaluation of public participation that is taken up by any institution? That is lacking. So what we are doing so far, we did, how it went about, how it is funded, the continuity of it, and how it is actually the administration, the whole administration of it is also not very clear. So also the public relations and communications bill as well, as you legalize it and it becomes law, these are certain tenets that would also look at and give help and also assist the government in coming up with proper structures and proper strategies so that communication as a whole is wholesome, has an end-to-end, and has a theory behind it. So the short of the long, Honorable Chair, is that it is very pertinent and important, especially to the face of the government and also to us as practitioners, and also just to have a feel of safety and comfort that you belong to a house, you belong to a membership that has order. Even in our own homes, we do not just live, but there are certain house rules of how things are carried out. So that would be our one wish. And we have walked that path for the last very many years. And since establishment 53 years ago, Honorable Chair, I think it is time for us to put our house in order and say, once you are part of this house, this is what is expected of you, and these are the outcomes and the value additions. And just lastly is to say that once this goes through, this will provide and give an opportunity to create jobs to our very many students in the universities who undertake courses in PR and communications and do not know where to go. Why? Because the spaces are filled with people who purport to have that skill, but really looking at the training, it is lacking. So it is a win-win situation for the membership and also for the citizenry and the government as whole. Thank you, Chair.
One proud practitioner. You can see how the practitioners in the PR space are eloquent in their presentation and very succinct. And I'm now even more reminded that I need to renew my membership with the PRSK and also with the MSK. Before I say anything, are there any other presentations from your end? That should be it?
No, that should
because
be
I want
sufficient.
us to now engage the
and
members.
Then we now, I think with that overview and synopsis of what we are, where we have, the journey we have walked, I think it would only be fair to give you the opportunity to now engage, and then we can now give our responses.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'll allow for 2 introductions before I open the plenary. I'll allow the honorable member who has just walked in to make an introduction. We shall start right at the top of the table with the member for Keyo South. Honorable member, kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Gideon Kimayo, Member of Parliament, Keyo South Constituency, and a member of this committee.
Welcome.
Kir Shabir, semi-blind Member of Parliament at this moment in time for Kisumu East, member of this committee. Sorry, I've been running around finding out where you were actually meeting. Thank you.
Welcome, member. We are speaking live to that eye. It is not blind. Honorable member, kindly introduce yourself.
My name is Jamatia Sergon, a member of Parliament, Baringo County, and a member of this committee.
I want you to engage them on their presentation. You remember we have unpacked this bill clause by clause. There were concerns that were raised right from the beginning, and I would want to give the pole position to the honorable member for Mboni, followed by the honorable specially elected member Abdisirat, and then from there we shall I shall direct. Mheshimiwa Kivasu.
And thank you for the good presentation. My name once more is Kivasu Nzioka, Member of Parliament Booni, and member of this committee. I have 2 or 3 questions. One is, you are talking of you started in 1971 and you have been in existence for 54 good years. As a society, I guess registered under the Societies Act. And now you are looking at moving from the society to an institute of PR and communication management, which is good. I'm just wondering, when you talk about you want to put the practitioners together, and if I look at that bill on the practitioner and the practicing certificate that needs to be borne by the practitioner, where are you going to get that practicing certificate? Are you going to issue it, or are they going to come with it? We need to be clear on that. You have 513 members. Those members, do they have the practicing certificate, or they are just general members? Or you are going to start afresh when now you have the institute already started? Thank you.
The Honorable Abdisirat.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Abdisirat Ali, representing marginalized community. Okay. I would like to ask one question. We have many professional bodies in this country, and literally all of them have legal framework. They have clear operational guidelines and code of conduct for their members. However, these members or professionals that subscribe to these professional bodies engaged always in an act of commission or omission that are detrimental to this society in general. By engaging, in this act with utmost impunity, they are members of professional bodies. Their action or omissions always, or most of the times, are detrimental to our society. An example is what happened recently during demonstrations by the media houses. I don't want to go into details. How are you going to deal with this issue within your members? I don't know whether my question is clear.
Very clear.
Thank you very much.
We shall give this first batch of questions, so you can take these ones and maybe answer them one by one, or you can answer them thematically. If you find that there are any questions that are probably coming into one bucket and can be answered thematically. So for this first batch, I'd like to ask, what do you say to that Kenyan who will say that here is Parliament creating yet another body, that they have had so many bodies being created, and maybe this is a body that is being created to rent seek. For example, the way people just get together, they might say that these are just a number of communicators who have gotten together, created yet another body where they will be collecting membership fees and collecting charges.
Thank you.
So, what do you say to such a member?
Thank you. You have just taken that.
Yes. The second question is, public relations in its proper form should be a very respected component in the communication space. But as we speak today, if any Kenyan tells you unafanya PR, they are not saying it very respectfully. In fact, the profession of PR is now looked at not in very good light. It looks like you're putting up an image that is fake, or you're a rent seeker or a conman. By bringing together a professional body, how will we be working towards tidying up the space that is called PR, so that whenever you try to communicate or you try to engage with stakeholders or other different publics, you're not told unafanya PR, and it is seen not in very good light. And many other things that stem out of that. Jesse Masai and I were in a classroom where we were being taught that even propaganda itself is a word derived from propagation, and in fact came from the word from the time when the gospel was being propagated, so that propaganda was the propagation of gospel. But today when you say yoni propaganda, it is not taken well. So does this help by us coming into a body, and you have told us that you want to bring sanity, bring regulations and standard, put a code of standard, and all these justifications you have made, will they start walking us towards a better place for PR and all that is related to relating with the publics? Mheshimiwa Kivasu has asked it differently, but I'll also ask. PRSK has existed for now close to 54 years. What will happen differently now that we transition you from a society into the organization and the setup that you are asking us to do in this bill? What are you going to do differently that you have not been able to do in the last 54 years? Finally, these members are the members who build the budget. They create the budget. They also are the members who appropriate. They're the members who also institute measures on how to raise the taxes so that we can finance that budget. You might want to be very clear to these members what the impact of the formation of this body has on the Kenya budget. What will it mean to the budget? Are you wanting to get some monies or fundings from the exchequer? Are you asking Bunge to appropriate some monies to you? And that was in general terms. Now, specifically to the bill, I would want to take you to clause 21 of your proposed bill. And clause 21 is talking about members' categories. And it lays out how this happens. And I'd like to take you to section 3 of this, which is C. And the clause is saying that the membership of the institute shall be in the following classes. And it lists classes, and there's a class there. Associate members. I've been an associate member of PRSK. I would understand that. So associate members. No, actually, I've been a corporate member, not an associate member, sorry. been a corporate member. Associate members, comprising members with less than 3 years experience in the practice of public relations and communications management, and shall be titled Associate of the Institute of Public Relations and Communications Management, Kenya, designatory letters being AIPRC-K, and 2 have no voting rights. Now, in this clause 21, first we would want you to give clarity on the categories of membership so that members understand what kind of membership is this. After giving that clarity, I would also want to know who becomes the custodian of the practicing certificate. And maybe you would let us know. Is the CEO the registrar, and do they then become the custodian of the practicing certificate, or who does, in your view? There is also a question that we were trying to work around as members when we were unpacking this bill, and the question here is there a need for having a provision on the registrar to be able to be handling the certificates, the registration of these firms, and the removals of members from the membership roll? So talk to us about clause 21 on membership on 2 issues. Clarify how this membership happens, and 2, who becomes the custodian of this practicing certificate. You can take those first batch of questions, and then we shall come back to the other members. And to fall back on any expertise you have that you carried with you in answering the questions that members have fielded.
Taken in your questions and the first set of questions from the honorable members, and then we'll flow to those that you have expressively asked for clarity on. So the first question, I have split them across with to my colleagues, with Jesse answering the first question.
Through the chair, for those who have just joined, my name is Jesse Masai, a council member of the Public Relations Society of Kenya. Mheshimiwa Kivasu, and I suppose also chair, because you guys are aligned, the members in place already have certificates. They are not having to start from nowhere. They already do have certificates. I do. 8 to 5, by the way, I serve a devolved unit called Nyandarua. So to do what I'm doing, I do that based on the certificate that I have as a full member. And that applies to anyone who is doing it in my team. All of us do that. Those joining, upon enactment, we'll certainly have to also get a certificate to become members. We receive applications for student membership. That's for those who are in school. And school here, I mean college or university. We also have associate members, the ones that the chair is referring to. This one is for those who are seeking to join the profession and who may not have a background in communication, but either have the experience or are currently training towards joining the profession fully as communicators. And I respect the chair for this because he has had the courage to practice and also to train so that one can fully account for his journey into the profession. There's no doubt that you paid the price. So that's for the associate members. And we have a door for upgrades. This happens periodically. We assess your experience over time and your paperwork to show that actually you now can move from being an associate member to being a full member. So you have a trainee, as is in the bill, then you have the associate member, then the full member, Then we have a category for our members who served for the longest time, given their very best to the industry for many years. These are the ones we call fellows. They are the gold standard of the profession. They have done outstanding work for the industry and for our country. And I think there are very few. There are only 13.
Yes, there are 13.
Yeah, at the last count. So those are the categories. And
Just
for each,
for the clarity of members,
yes,
they might want to know, will this bill provide for a framework or a guide on the admission to become a fellow? Because that's an esteemed position.
yes.
We've seen in bodies like where Wakili Marlin serves or is a member of the LSK, there was a position reserved which was almost like what you would call a fellow, what they call a senior counsel. But nowadays you find young lawyers walking in the streets calling each other senior. So we would like to know, is there a framework or a guide as to how does the bill provide for how one is admitted to become a fellow of the institute?
Through the chair.
Certificate, or who is going to be issuing them? And if they are coming with practicing certificates, who authenticates those certificates?
It's a question. Masai?
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of fellows, we have a framework in place. I chair the committee that initiates that action. We have a very clear guideline around that. There are things we look out for. The same framework will be carried over into the new institute. One doesn't become a fellow easily, and I fully appreciate the question around the lawyers and the struggles they've had. It's not easy being able to decide who becomes a fellow, and I think that applies to all of us, whatever one may be serving. But for us, it's very clear-cut, very clear-cut. We look out for experience, for one. We look out for publications, as another example. We look out for outstanding work. For example, right now, the country has had a very difficult moment, and our team lead here made reference to it. We took the approach of not bashing the government, blasting and all that. We took the quiet route. We gave counsel, as was requested by the government. Years to come, those who may come after us, will look back and say, when Kenya had this very rough moment, what happened? So in the wisdom of those who may come after us, there may be a way to look at how that happened. So if we have a member who helped our country to come through this phase, untidy as it has been, in a way that honors the profession and our country, there's a way that we can honor that through a fellowship, among other tools. Chair, you asked about 21. C and the pathway. I wish to assure the committee and the country that where we have a member seeking to join and they don't have a background in comms, but they have experience, right? They have worked. This is one way we're opening a door for Kenyans to join the society as associate members, pending an upgrade into a full member. And again, that journey also can be fully accounted for in terms of academia and experience and duration. We have an institute coming into place with a bill and a council to govern that institute. So this governing framework will be the one that will determine who gets the certificate and who doesn't. Again, based on a very clear criteria.
Just Council Member Jesse has said, just to answer your question, when you look at Section 26, we are saying that the Council issues that certificate. I know you had asked who issues that certificate. The Council issues that certificate, and it satisfies that the person is a full member with the credentials that he has given, that has sufficient continuous professional development points, what you call CPD points, And, this is valid for a year. So this certificate comes from somewhere. And the council sits through the secretariat to actually see if you have met the criteria of that and for you to actually have that certificate.
Chair, that is from somewhere else, not from the institute.
The question is in two parts. The question is, you shall be verifying qualification or suitability. And the question is, where will that be domiciled and who is the authority doing it? And if there shall be a body, should that body also be seen in the bill? Should that body also be existing? Whether you call it a council, whether you call it a panel, whether you call it whatever it is, would you want for us to carry such a body in the bill? Because it's at this stage when we are building the bill that we can decide that we require such an organ in the institute.
So,
The institute will be doing.
yes.
Yeah. Speak to it, Mheshimiwa Kivasu.
Yes, Chair, that is where I'm getting to, because in Section 8, Part C, the council will be determining fees for applications, registrations, and membership. It is not clear whether you are going to be doing training, and that's why I'm insisting to know exactly where this practicing certificate is coming from. It is going to be issued by the council, that is okay, but from where? That skill is from where? Is it from you? Is it from outside? And if it is from outside, how will you authenticate that that training is clear?
I think so far for capacity building and just to ensure that members fit the bill and go through that rigorous training and are subjected to the litmus test, we have had an MOU with CASNEB, and also we have also been in conversations with Daystar University to actually offer this training, where it could be in modules, it could be in whatever form, but then go through it, certify that I, Patricia, I have gone through module 1, certificate 1, or whatever it may be, and I have successfully completed and passed. And therefore, with that, then the certification, which comes from there, from PRSK, from us. So that actually proves that you have been subjected to the litmus test. You are not just walking in from somewhere to come and say, okay, I want to be a member, but how are you doing this? Do you understand the science behind formulating a strategy? Do you understand the science behind, managing a crisis, and so on and so forth based on that? So I hope that answers the question.
We'll the next batch of questions. So I'd want for you to clear with the first batch. Yes. Yeah.
So the second.
Okay, like a reaction to this?
Yes, please.
Kindly, Mheshimiwa.
Been involved in the issues of number of institutes have upgraded themselves. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Accountants and others. The question my colleague asked you was very clear. You seem to only want to, your answer is, I think, one that is going to evolve. So you are telling us what you can do right now, and you have MOUs with a university here and a university there, but you do not have a criteria. Like if you're the chartered, like when I was a chartered accountant, I had professional exams that were set by the institute. However, we went for training with certain universities and everything else, but we were trained to meet those exams set by the institute. So at this moment in time, it appears you do not have any infrastructure, nor any idea, nor any forward planning of whether you'll be having your own institute exams, but you are depending upon public relations and communication management, strategic management, at some of the good universities. How will you, and based upon that, you will give a certification. So if I come with a PhD in public relations management from the Bukusu University of China or somewhere, or one of the universities in Bukusu land, which is a university but is not, how will you deal with it? Do you understand me? So what your answer should be, we should be assessing the institute as well. So if you get somebody from the government institute or Bankers Institute or whatever, you would be guiding likewise. And then what is the relationship with the Institute of Banking, with the Institute of Chartered Accountancy, with the Institute of Secretaries, because they're all into PR. I see to my sister here now. Thank you.
So, Honourable Chair, had the first batch of questions from the honourable members, and we had split them. Council Jesse has entered the first, and so just to make clarity, there's already a curriculum that has been developed. There's already a curriculum in existence that has been developed, and so that will come into the body of the professionalism of it in the second question that I will give my colleague Eddie to answer, and so that will sufficiently answer your question on the certification and who does it and how, and also just give unpack the whole curriculum that has already been developed. So I'll give this chance to you, Council Eddie.
Thank you, Team Leader. Through the remind us and take us to Section 19 that actually provides for the qualification and registration, which speaks to, the examination body that actually will be able to provide that practicing certificate after a member has actually successfully passed the examination. And this is what will allow us to be able to put in place the curriculum that we have already developed. And they can be administered by any other university, but it is actually an exam and a curriculum that has been prepared by the council. You can have a PhD in PR relations, but when it comes to matters of practice and the ethical elements, you'd have the academic, you'll not have the practice issues. And that is what the curriculum is addressing, and the exams that have been provided for by the council will be able to address that. So once you've passed the exam, you will be able now to be given now the practicing license, and then you are joining now the institute as a professional. In the event that there is any discrepancies and issues to do with misconduct, as the question that Honorable Abdisarat had presented, then we will be able to refer you to Schedule 32, which provides for the disciplinary committee that will be able to address issues to do with professional misconduct and any other matters that will be highly, will bring the practice or the council to disrepute. So I think we have covered exhaustively in terms of the journey mapping from the time a member is expressing interest to join. And that is where my brother, Council Member Jesse, holds the membership and says there will be these categories of membership, but you'll only apply to those membership once you've been able to go through the curriculum, you've sat for the exams administered by the council or the institute in this matter, and then thereafter now you're able now to join your membership and then acquire your practice certificate. You'll be required to renew your practicing certificate upon attaining the required CPD points, the continuous professional development points that will be given through various courses, training workshops that will be taking place as you go along the year. So I hope this will be able to address the matter to do with who provides the training certificate, and also who provides who is the registrar for this exam, and the quality assurance that is necessary and requisite for this. If that is
existing membership is going to be transitioned.
Yes, affirmative. That is it.
So you consider what has already been done by the society good enough for admission into the institute?
At the moment, we would want to transition because we have already walked through the process with the members, because there's a membership committee that actually looks and vets membership applications. it comes with the requisite levels of checks and balances in terms of their academic qualifications, the years in practice, the added skill and advantages that the member provides to the profession and to the society at large. And thereafter, we also subject members to ensure that they can be able to gather a whole training calendar. They go through a training calendar of the various courses. So that suffices for now. But going forward to the future, that's why we want to say that let's have a curriculum that you have developed that covers exhaustively all the other matters that are actually emerging in a practice that is not stuck in time. We are not in 1971. We've moved, and there are a lot of issues that are emerging. So we want to expose members to those kind of issues. Thereafter, they sit the exam, and they will be able now to come into the profession.
Thank you.
There's a follow-up.
So she will say it when she's coming to her substantive questions. Is that the reaction to the first batch of questions?
There was a rider that team leader had provided in terms of what will be different, as you asked in your question. And this is important in the sense that, as the team leader alluded in her opening remarks, the reputational issues that affect the practice and the practitioners are going to be exhaustively addressed, because for once we'll have a standard of practice that is required of every member. And thereafter, we'll also have a level of, peer accountability, because then you provide and you stand in this membership, we can be able to call you out because there's a standard provided. At the moment, there is no standard to call out anyone and say what accounts for PR and what is not PR. We have seen recently a number of legal precedents that have been actually couched in the manner saying that, for example, public participation is a PR exercise. And that demeans, it demeans in the sense of makes it cosmetic, but it's not. PR is not cosmetic. At the same time, PR is not burying dead bodies and walking away from a crime scene. So we need to be able to say that even starting from a peer accountability space, this is the bill that will be able to provide it. And finally, Honorable Chair, I would like to say that lack of legislation and regulation will take us to a place of censorship and dictatorship, because the government at any particular time of the day may easily resort into very harsh penalties to address a particular issue. Yet censorship is not the solution to addressing matters of public engagement and consultation. And that's why, as our team leader said, our stance has been consultative, collaborative, and empowering, as opposed to actually throwing stones whenever we see any glass house on the road. I submit.
You've already started doing the work that the Institute, the work that we are hoping the Institute will be doing. Yes, Team Leader Patricia, is that the responses to the first batch?
Those are the responses to the first batch. However, I must say that we have certain spillovers from the responses that have gone to the questions now that you asked on the second bit. However, if with your permission, we could go straight to the second group of questions that you had. Now, thank you, Chair. You ask, what will we say to that Kenyan who is inquisitive and asking, why are you creating yet another body? What is our justification? Now, for a country to remain cohesive and responsive in a developing and dynamic global environment, such as where we are, we require order. And Chair and honorable members, you will agree with me that now we are facing what you call new media, artificial intelligence. Social media is a space that is a monster, if I could call it, because you could mine information, get any information, truthful or otherwise, from social media. And therefore, when we are facing issues or scenarios, recent happenings, as I also mentioned earlier, require order. and that order comes from somewhere. You'll agree with me that even today, as we have our cousins in the media, and I always say, Media Council, Marketing Society, we are cousins. But we have very distinct roles and objectives. So even those who are with us today, they are accredited by somebody. They didn't just walk in here and because they have a camera and they ask for a job in a media house and you know how to zoom in and out and click, and so you could come here. They are accredited, and if we ask them, could we have your accreditation, they have that accreditation from MCK. And so in the same breath, we need order within our space, Honorable Chair. We need order, and what are we saying? We are saying that for you to be part of this team, for you to be part of this space, you need to have gone through, rigorous training. You need to understand what public relations and communications entails. You need to have some accountability with you. You need to know that when I say this on behalf of my institution or behalf of my organization, or if I'm the spokesperson for a certain entity, then I am liable. And then I also need to know that if I say this, this is libel. If I say this, then these are the repercussions. This is what is required of me. This is the fine that I will have to put up with. So that said, it is important for us to demonstrate that. And it would also be important for us to creatively work backwards as an entity, as PRSK, to know that as this is going on and these hard questions are going to be asked by the citizenry, what are we doing? So we quickly formulate and fashion a public education and advocacy scenario, which we can do very easily through free media, social media, through related media that we have access to, and showcase and demonstrate what is the importance of this regulation, what is the importance of us having this bill and this body, and just showcasing even where we are, because it comes from a point of empathy. We were all affected and inflicted in one way or another, even if you were safe in the confines of your home. But I can tell you, as a citizen of this country, there is worry in your heart, and you wonder, what next? Where are we headed to? How did we get here? What can be done better? How can we change this into a glass that is half full and not half empty? How can we resonate with the new promises and the new strategies that the government has put in place? So all this cannot be done in silence. This has to be done with somebody holding the mantle. This has to be done with somebody who is holding this strategy in their hand and saying, this is the way, this is what we are going to do. And so with the public education, with the advocacy, with letting them know in a nice, silent way without pushing it down their throats, because Kenyans are also very wary of things that are pushed down their throats. Create reason and create the need for them to understand that we do need this. We need communication. The other day, the president and also the CS nominee of Treasury had also, mentioned that communication is lacking somewhere. Members and the citizens and members of the public were just saying no to this. Some do understand, some understand it halfway, some completely going with the wave and saying it not because they understand, but because it's fashionable to do so. But let's move away from it being fashionable. Let's move away from trying to make an attempt to educate, to create public education, to create awareness and say, this finance bill, these are the merits, and this is how it's going to help. So that now you create an environment that is engaging and people can now prod and ask. But without communication, without information, then you have disinformation. And then what happens? Hell breaks loose, and even something small that would have been solved through communication, information, and dissemination of strategy and what the National Treasury would give, and what are the repercussions to us as a country, politically, economically, and socially, has now gone, up in smoke. So small things that could be attended to, issues that can be nipped in the bud through information, through awareness, left not without any ownership of communication, then ends up slapping us on the face and demonstrating that to the citizenry within those strategies and within those channels that I have outlined would be beneficial. And I'm sure, Honorable Chair, that when we do that in a proper way, in a systematic way, they would then appreciate why this body and this legalization is important, just so that there is order, and just so that at the end of the day, when we are grappling with any other issue that is economic in nature, of social nature, then our communication experts can pick it up from wherever they are, be it in the academia space, government, private sector. And there's that song in unison, and there's a formula to it. So for me, I think we are not just creating another body, but it is time and it is necessary that we do that. Thank you, Chair.
Wonderful. I'll go to the Honorable Jamatia, County MP for Baringo. Kindly, this is a substantive question now. This is time for you to ask.
Thank you so much, Chairman, and Madam Patricia and team. I've keenly been listening to the presentations, and first of all, I must say, I think PR in itself, probably that's how I understand, is an amorphous, it can be defined in many ways. The team leader of...
Allow me to interject at that point. Public relations is not amorphous, but I will not attempt in the presence of such experts to define.
Exactly.
But allow me just to give the team leader just an opportunity to define for you PR. She had alluded to it being a science and it being an art at the same time. So I'd want her to give a textbook definition of public relations, and you might want to call upon or depend upon
simple language.
Just simple language. Define it for member so that she bases her question on the right premise.
Yes, I don't want to sound very academic, and if you have followed my descriptions since I came here, I've been trying to give very localized examples just so that we are able to internalize and you're also able to mirror. So public relations basically is an art, yes, and a science, depending on what you're looking at and how you're going about it. A science because when we look at strategy and we look at formulating strategies, there's a certain outline on how to even just come up with a strategy up until to the end, and with an M&E and looking at what comes first to the end. So those frameworks give it that definition of it being a science. But an art is because, we call it an art because an art is something that is not specific. It's not specific to how I will do it. How I cook my food is not how you cook your food, Honorable Member, with all due respect. Yes, differently. But at the end of the day, it's palatable. At the end of the day, it is nutritious. But some people boil before, some people just let everything cook together. But in the long run, there's something that is coming out of it. So the art of it and how to do it is also different in nature, and depending on the scenario, depending on the situation, that is now how you apply that art and how you apply the science. It is like going to a doctor, for instance. If for example, it's a case of dermatology, you will go to a dermatologist. You will not go to a dentist. So you have to be very specific onto what the challenge is, what you're addressing, and then apply the technique appropriately just for you to get your end result.
She was posing a question. Mahesh, public relations is basically a strategic communications that organizations or entities apply so that they're able to engage with the different publics.
And give a specific image.
And not just to give an image, to actually communicate effectively with the different publics and stakeholders. But pose your question now.
But yes, to also agree with you, when that happens, as Honorable Chair has said, over time, when that happens, what he has described happens, then it creates a brand and an image, and a specific image as
So
an end result.
it contributes to
which
your brand
brings
equity.
in trust at the end of the day.
My question is, since 1971, what are the gains of public relations in this country? Two, what are the qualifications when you do your curriculum or something like that? What are the qualifications of a peer person? And because I want to believe most of the work or the public relations, section is mainly domiciled in the communication sector. I want you to give a scenario of how Kenyan media institutions like TVs, radios, and others, do they brand? Like, for instance, for instance, during the demonstrations and all this, just using an example of what you've actually been giving us as a scenario. So what happens in that scenario? What happens when people go to the streets and they destroy, and we still have a constitution that gives you the right to demonstrate while other people are doing it, while you have an image to protect and a constitution to protect. And then there's this institution called PRSK that is sitting somewhere, and we expect the institution probably to be the one guiding. Maybe now, I'm probably jumping ahead. Probably that is when you are now realizing that it is important for this institution to be in place properly. But what happens in the media on this code of conduct, on this peer, image presentation? How do we come back calm, come back the situation after whole aggressiveness and all those kind of things to protect the image of the country? I want to speak for the image of the government. Number two, who are your clienteles? Do you work for government or you specifically do private work? So that when we are dealing with this bill, if you will at any time we will be dealing with a money bill, this is going to be a coffers money. It's not a money bill. So if it's not a money bill, so how do you do your registration? You want to have it's an institution. And this institution, most likely, is going to be pegged on a budget. So how do you do the budget? You put it, is it a private entity or non-governmental, something along that lines, probably. And then in the era of today, just like you've put it clearly, madam, that we are dealing with the new media world. What are the specific things that you really intend to do so that you will be catching up with the realities of the day? And specifically, whether if you are dealing with an institution, for instance, or like parliament, when parliament and parliamentarians are going through torrents of media aggressiveness, we have members of parliament who are through X the other day were abused left, right, center. They were trolled all over the place. What really happens? Who are apart from the institutions, because the media here will be reporting about the negativity, which I think sells more. I don't know, in this world today, it is the negative part of the society that sells better than the positive part. But at the end of the day, as a country, an institution like parliament, which is the citizenry, I like the way you put it all the time, that are supposed to be the consumers. So how do you, as a peer, going to, balance between projecting the right information and getting it into the, waving out of the negativity that is so much into the market nowadays. I don't know whether I've put something across properly. Thank you.
She touched on it, and I think it's of a great concern to her and to us. As you know, that I did public relations in both my master's and my PhD. So people do public relations and strategic management when they're even dentists, etc. But as you said, we specialize. The question that I have for you is there's been a big gap, Mr. Chair, between PR, corporate, and PR that's required for national public communication, policy for government. There is no national public communication policy or design for government infrastructure. There is no PR do's and don'ts, and which would be guided towards government, public institutions, etc. Even in accountancy, what we call public accountants who are working in the public service, and then the private. Do you see what I'm trying to say? My knowledge of this this society, I've known it for some time, is that you are very much being strictly corporate PR and communication, because that is what the most dynamic issue is, and that's what's required in the newspapers and other things, and for government strategies, and for strategies, etc., within companies. However, if you go to the government training college or some of these their issue of PR, public relations and communication, is at the best wanting. So they are taking what is called corporate PR and trying to adapt it into government. How would you wish to? I hope that you, as a public relations unit, the association, would cover both elements. And I hope that you would be able to put together that. Would you be able to, or have you looked at any formation of a national public communication and policy design for government infrastructure? It's something that has come up in research, and there are a number of people who've written about it, Mr. Chair, that there's a big gap. Right? There's a big gap between the two. That big gap causes in itself miscommunication, causes it in itself misunderstanding. So the guy who's sitting like my dear friend right now, Isaac Maura, he's there as a government spokesman, and he may not know. His view of public relations is totally different. Like Alfred Mutua came in from the private sector, Mr. Chair, if you remember, tried to apply private sector-based public relations, take off the trees and put flowers, that sort of thing, whereas public relations and formation needs this reconciliation between the two. And the sooner that your institute would be able to, I hope that you would be able to look at that proposal, that there should be PR for government, that a PR policy, the words that I've borrowed from the internet, formation of national public communication policies and design for government infrastructure in PR. I think I don't want to say more than that, but the fact of the issue is, even in the last problems that we've had with Gen Z and others, we've always had different understanding of what PR is. The news media has gone off in one direction, somebody else has gone. Our public servants have gone up in another direction, and there is a major gap. I think I want to say that, and just say that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jematia, and thank you very much, Honorable Shakil. I want you to take these questions.
One more thing, please, if you don't mind. I chair the anti-corruption African Parliamentarians Against Corruption. If either a body like ours, or a body like the EACC, or a body that is looking at the possibility of corrupt activities or activities that are beyond reproach, reports one of your members to you, what would you do? Would you then put them to a regular exercise of powers and privileges, your committee? Because our powers and privileges committee is not able to work on any of these particular things. Would you say to person, listen, you've been accused, you've not gone to court yet, but we feel that this institute is above reproach, and we feel that you should step down at least, or we put you on sort of a watch list while we are investigating you. Would you have that sort of thing inserted into your powers, into your articles?
I know you've listened very well to the questions from the two members, and in the interest of time, I'd want you to respond only within the scope to which your answers will be speaking to the bill before us. Because some of the questions are very good questions, but very conceptual. If we started to unpack PR here, we would now be in class for another few days, just unpacking PR. And in fact, even a very good question from Honorable Shakil, how we have dichotomized the corporate communications and public comms. And to his mind, he sees as if they cannot work together.
No, they can, but they're not right now.
Exactly. To the Honorable Jematia, she also poses some extremely good questions. So just answer them only to the extent that they speak to the bill before us. Take your time.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and I will attempt to answer those questions, but also give some to my colleagues, just so that there is no fatigue response or, me perhaps leaving out anything, but I think I'm up to the task. I will make the attempt. So, Honorable Shakil asks about the big gap between PR, corporate, and what next for government. I would just like to say that, like any other profession, communication, we have those expertise on development communications, government communications, those on the corporate academia, who actually understand the subject matter, and then now translate it into communications and PR. So yes, that is very possible. We have government communications communicators within ourselves, and specialists who have so far been called to sit at the table with other media practitioners and other leaders in government to even just address the crisis that we have now. So that is
his question, as pertains to this bill, would probably be answered if you framed it around by instituting or bringing to life these institutes. Do we start addressing the issues that we are seeing with government being very handicapped in communicating? Because as it is right now, there is a society, and you're asking us to transition it into an institute. How will that play out in terms of government comms scaling up?
Thank you, Chair.
And communicating more effectively?
Thank you,
Yes.
Chair. Yeah. It says that government, it looks at the functions of the institute, giving advice to government on matters relating to public relations and communications management. So straight to answer you, and to your point, yes.
But this is not to sufficiently answer your question, Shakil, because see this, Honorable Shakil, not only are they doing what is stipulated in G, but they are also bringing sanity and order to the entire PR space. Right now, there is not a single ministry or department or agency that does not have a communications department. So now, with the new institute, then the institute is able to take to task officers already deployed in some of these agencies to bring them up to the level of the standards that are required for communication, up to and including the requisite training. I would imagine that that's the
Chair.
intent.
And you speak to Part J. You speak to Part J, which says that to collaborate with national, regional, and global bodies in the matters of public relations and communications management. And so that is by giving the expertise and looking at the situations at hand, so that PR and communications is at the start of every discussion, at the start of every discussion on management, and also within the preserves of the public relations sectors within every national institute or body, institutional body.
Ron, I'd like to rest it. In the interest of time, Shakil, okay, ask, okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't speak just ad hoc. I was in the public, I went to Isaac Mauro's office the other day, and I went to see a huge communication body, as you well say. And some of them are people we know. Then I saw this gentleman, he's the director. He used to be, huh? No, the guy, he used to be The Hague. No, I have no problem. He's a good guy. What I'm trying to put together, you see, what you're talking about is under all these items you're talking about, the institute shall be capable, no, shall register, etc., etc. These are your desires that you will be able to facilitate and whatever. We were wondering how within your thing you could make it stronger, so that I'm trying to explain this to you. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm an accountant. If I am seen at a CD joint or something wrong with me, so you just have to write to the British Institute of Chartered Accountants. They will put me on notice. If I am working for a government and I'm breaking the standard accounting practices, there is something that there is there. So I was hoping for you to say to me here that, look, among some of these things, as we are now setting out, we were moving from sitting from a society to an institute to strengthen that institute, and we'll be coming up with standards that will be met by all practitioners. So if you have that gentleman who's a director of communication in the office, the government spokesman, he must be a member and meet those standards. And if he does not meet those standards, and you don't meet that reactory standard, there must be something like a reconciliation body where we go and sit and say, listen, the government is looking at it this way. We as PR and the public relations communication, this is the standards, and they're breaking our standards. I'm trying to come to that.
Honorable Shakil, you have very well actually answered your question.
I've answered.
Earlier on, they had made a presentation as to the overarching reasons that prompt them to ask us to move this from a society to an institute, and key among them were exactly what you're saying. Bringing sanity and order in the comm space, the regulations and the standards, the code of conduct, the support for government services, and so on. So the answer you already gave it, Honorable Shakil, that by having an institute that becomes the center of truth and giving the gold standard for public relations, they are not only uplifting the individual practitioners, but uplifting the entire space of communications, and then holding to account the people who claim to be members of the institute, so that if there is a government spokesman, then that government spokesman will be weighted against the standards given by the institute. And it will also be a requirement, just as it is required that an engineer working at a certain level for Kura or Kera or any other agency has to carry a certain qualification, then this institute becomes that institute for communications. So in a way actually addressing your question.
Mr. Chair, we're very fortunate to have you as a specialist in this issue. I think you've just hit what our concern was, like Kura. Now the regional engineer for Kura is now preparing a road. And instead of preparing a certain quality of road, he goes and prepares a lesser quality. Now he would be taken to task by the engineers. I speak so because of my experience, Mr. Chair. As I said, I've been here for some time. We worked on the Institute for, was it insurance brokers, not that long ago in the last parliament. The same thing came over, how we are going to transit, how we are going to bring these people into the thing, how we are going to control this menace of, but we had some very brilliant answers and thoughts. But where we went after that is still back to the stage one. I'm not for 1 minute saying that you would go that way, but do please bear with me if I'm being a little pedantic. It's because we have seen this come before. We've seen it come in the 17 years in Parliament, Mr. Chair. I've seen it coming a number of times, and I've never really finished this. And we're hoping that the PRSK will be the exception to the rule. Thank you, sir.
That is not a question, that's a comment. And he makes a good point. A seasoned member of parliament, but also with great interests in matters to do with governance. He's chairing a caucus, which APNAC, which is a caucus that is up against corruption. So that's why he's looking for the mechanisms that make it possible for someone to be answerable for professional shortcomings. Kindly respond to the questions. This time I'll push you for time a bit.
Thank you, Chair. Out of your concerns, I just want to say that as a society, we have not just waited for this to pass, but we have gone a step ahead to even engage offices such as those of the government spokesperson to do capacity building, guide them on what needs to be done, and also be part of the conversation as we create a communication strategy for the office of the government spokesperson. Who are our clientele? I'll just, in the beginning when I was giving out, mapping out what we constitute in terms of our membership, talking about the academia, the public sector, private sector, those in development communication, also looking at those in private sector, also just to include the citizens, because you actually realize that people are yearning for information and they're not getting it. And looking outwardly, I just also want to underscore the fact that as a society, when you look at ourselves regionally and internationally, we have made certain strides and milestones that I will say, and I allow me to also just brag on behalf of our nation, that we have set a precedence and also just showcased how leadership within the public relations space could be. And as we speak right now, Kenya and our chair, who's our overall team lead, is the president of APRA, the Public Relations Association in Africa. And we have also brought together the East African Public Relations Association, EAPRA, and that also is our brainchild, which we are now working walking the path with our neighboring countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. We're also doing Sudan, Burundi. And we held the first East African Public Relations Week 2 years ago. Last year was hosted by Uganda, and this year it's being hosted by Tanzania. So that would not have been possible if we had not set the pace in terms of giving direction within the public relations and communication space, advancing the subject matter of public relations and communications, and giving it relevance and bringing together practitioners within the region. So I must say that our clientele spans inwardly and also within the regional level. And how do we bring calm? You ask, how do we bring calm in the middle of all this adversity and everything that is happening? Now, the issue that has been is that when you look at where we are right now and figure out why couldn't A, B, C have stopped this before we reached here? And I want to say it is because there's no proper framework. There is no order. There is no proper training in terms of who is sitting as a director of communications in government, for example. You find somebody who reads well, and with all due respect with their training in media and journalists, being a newscaster, but being a communications director or overseeing the functions of communications within a county, within a government entity, and within a government office does not just entail reading news. There's so much more to it. There is looking at a communication strategy, fashioning it, looking at the environment, looking at audience segmentation, what appeals to them, how can we now break down a communication policy, what speaks to our needs as an entity, as a government entity for that matter. So they will look nice, the brand is good, the name is good, is a household name, but when the rubber meets the road, honorable members, when the rubber meets the road, we are now dealing with handicapped people. We are now dealing with people who are sending out pressers, calling them, members of the fourth estate, which is good, but communications and PR is a 360. It is not just about media relations. It is about internal communications and also external communications. It is about looking at a strategy. It is about writing speeches, studying your boss or the person you report to, finding out, does this speak to the manifesto of the day, the government manifesto of the day? Embedding it in what you're saying, showcasing your projects and your products, and looking at the agenda of the day. Is this embedded in what you say on a daily basis? Do you have a social media strategy, for instance? What are we saying in this quarter? What are we exemplifying, and what are we saying? These are our outputs. So when you have bodies seated there who do not have that training, who do not have the ethical understanding of what entails PR and communications, and who have that drive to continuously churn out, then the calm will not happen. So for us to have calm, we have to have those people with us.
Chairman, I am not, being a politician sometimes makes you just a PR person. Because you deal with things,
We are PR.
whether trained or not, circumstance makes you behave with a lot of PR. If you look at carefully, I was watching, nowadays when you during those torrent times, I went back to history and I looked at how Moi, for instance, managed his time of rough times. And everyone is different. Personality is also different. Moi would apply patriotism to calm the situation. When people were fighting and all those, he would just, send a message to all media houses, radios specifically, to play patriotic songs. That alone makes Kenyans look like, we have a country to settle and something to yearn to it. I want to know, as a PR professional, what are the tenets? What are the things that you do? There are things that it's like going to class. There's a formula. What are the things you do? Because you are managing people's emotions. During very high times like these ones, what was the things that the government should have done at the height of that?
Or what should
for the country to just come down without necessarily, now we're having nani the other day, we probably have another thing. Most likely we have not solved the problem. So the PR, as a professional, because now that I am interacting with a PR person, for all along I've never seen one, or I've never interacted with one.
Chair is there.
Chair is one. And so those, I needed these you people, because we are going to be an institution now, to create solution-based constitution or tenets. When it is high, what do you make people go down? And that is when the PR factor, for me, if you ask me, is when it's needed.
Chair, as an occasion we are not going to have again. And sometimes you take advantage of whatever we have. My colleague has made an excellent point. The other issue that we want to, when something goes wrong from point of view of law, you see the chair of LSK and everybody come out and say something. Yeah. I haven't seen the chair of PS, Public Relations Society, come up. We have, for the first time, we are topped Africa in the Olympic record, 17 medals. Oh no, 11 medals. Yes. Only China we will be. If this was Britain, we would be accentuating the poverty. Right now, there wouldn't be a newspaper that didn't have these photographs of these people. Here is a person who's broken a world record, not only world record, there is no man or woman alive who has won 3 Olympic medals consecutively. And we are not, and 3, there's no man or woman right now, there isn't. Yet we are taking it. Where is our PR? Where is our PR? By now we should be singing.
This is you get the sense. It's the same point that the Honorable Jematia was trying to make. Point is made. What I might not open the floor for is for the second bit of the question. Honorable Jematia, the individuals you see before you are practicing communicators, and they do have a fee. They have a rate card. When they do consultancy, they charge, and it is funny. It is only we people in communications who are told to offer this consultancy for free. Nobody ever asks the doctor, treat me. Ati akikuja aketi hapa unamwambia we ni daktari nitibu. Hakuna. So I'll want to shield them from offering any professional services or consultancy.
We can go to Canada.
Yes.
To get PR, but not use our own.
We have very good. I can vouch for the communicators in Kenya, but the point is made that in the situation that the country is, there is a need to engage publics and to engage them in the right way. So, Madam Patricia, I would want you to, in reaction to the comments that you're making, to also make your final remarks.
Yes, as I make my final remarks, I also just want to answer a question that was brought in by Honorable Madam, that in terms of the budget, where are we getting the budget? This is self-financing. Currently, we depend on membership subscriptions. We also depend on training. We have a training calendar that gives a whole array of the training that is available for members within the corporates, private and public sector, on issues to do with, PR communications, from speech writing to internal communications and all that. And we also have programs that look at engaging members on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. We have town halls where we also discuss all these things on what they would like to see in the training budgets and in the training calendar and so on and so forth. So we get our finances from there, And when you look at Section 35, it gives the provisions of the financial provisions, which says that the funds of the institute shall consist of monies or fees as may be payable to the institute under the Act, and I have just mentioned those. And then also the assets as may accrue to the institute in the exercise of its powers, grants, donations, and also when you look at other institutions, other public institutions of similar nature who had come to be especially regulatory, initially they depend on the membership and every other thing that comes about. Then right in the middle there's a mix, but then as they now get to independence, they now run on their own. So if it is an issue of a regulator within the roads sector or energy sector, there's also the issue of levies, which are subjected to those who are within their audiences. So that has been clearly spelt out within this bill under Section 35, and also being creative in trying to see what other programs, what other income generating activities do we have to also sustain us. So that is very clear, and we are very, very clear not to go out asking for big monies. So far, we run on that, and we have a physical secretariat at Wuyi Plaza. Wuyi Plaza on Galana Road. On Galana Road. Yes, and we have a fully fledged secretariat there. We have some secretariat members here. So we have, through the council, we have managed to set our administration within proper channels that are acceptable, and also we are answerable to the membership because our positions are also we are elected to office and we are answerable to the membership. So in that regard, I think we have been very careful on how we operate, and administratively, I think that has also gained a lot of confidence for us with the membership. And as we keep on, then I think we can say that members have shown interest in being part of this society and for this membership, because you don't want to be part of an association that does not have accountability. So that would be my response in regards to the budget.
Just as you have those membership meetings, or you have those meetings in Mombasa or wherever,
yes,
other institutes invite members of their committees.
Yes.
We can pay our own way. Just let us know sometimes. I wouldn't mind spending a weekend trying to be.
Yeah.
That's one. The other thing is, please, if you have any magazines, monthly magazines or something, share them with this particular committee. And finally, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. We want to use you to help us revamp the communication bill. I think you might want to think about that. Yeah?
Thank you, Chair. Him and then give an overview of what I think. We have an annual summit, which is our biggest event, which brings together practitioners across the divide of communication. And just as we are currently also seeing the Law Society of Kenya. As we speak, they are having their annual summit in Diani. So we also have ours. Usually it's towards the end of the year, November, December. We used to have it down at the coast, but in light of, in the spirit of devolution, we have decided to also spread our wings and have these devolved entities also have an experience with us. And so last year we had it in Kwale County, in Diani. This coming year, we are having it down in the Nyanza region. So, honorable member, you will have an opportunity, God willing, to grace that as well. And why we are doing that is that we are also having as I mentioned, we also chair the APRA, the Association of the Public Relations in Africa. So that summit is also coming to Kenya, and that will also boost us economically as well, having all these countries coming into Kenya, PR minds and communications professionals converging here. So definitely, yes, we will make that invitation. We have a monthly, we have a PR digest that is run by is spearheaded by our member here, Eddie Wanyonyi. So that also gives an opportunity to, for members to write, speak about pertinent issues within the PR and communication landscape. And I'm sure we will be able to furnish you with the recent copies and a few others in the past, just for you to catch up with the kind of conversations and dialogues we've been having within our PR space. Yes, so I think I have answered those questions. And in summary, Chair and honorable members, I think we have put our case. I believe you see the reason behind us now saying we need this governed, we need an ethical framework, we need standardization for the betterment of the profession, and more so to speak to manage this country's image and to also manage the image of various institutions, and notably in sync. You can manage images in isolation, but importantly, we need to do it in a symbiotic way where we agree that this is the national communication strategy, and this now seeps in and spills over to our institutions, to our members, to create trust and credibility, and to also create that invaluable support to the government and to various audiences that we have been interacting with for the past 54 years. I'm not saying that PR is 54 years, but it's a trade that is as old as mankind. But it has been a journey, and that journey started with putting blocks together. And now, as we have baked this cake, we want to put icing on the cake, saying we are now here, we are serious, because, Chair, we do not want to be the ones who are called when a crisis is happening, but not available during the formulation of policies and management. We also need to be heard, and we tell ourselves, nobody is going to call you to the table. You have to demonstrate your value as practitioners. We have demonstrated our value. We have demonstrated what we can do. We have demonstrated our expertise. We now have institutions, academic institutions, offering these courses. Why? Because it is important. Now we are saying, being part of this conversation, we want regulation, and we want sanity, and we want to give our hand in the development of this beautiful nation of ours, and also just recognition internationally, regionally, and globally, because we are looking at Nigeria that has this passed in law, and we can see the strides they have made. South Africa as well. The most recent kid on the block, which is less than 2 years, is Zambia. So we are also saying that we have the muscle. We are quite respected regionally, even as a profession, as a professional body. But we need to finish that up and round it up, saying this is what has been with us for the past years. This is what we can do. And I'm sure you all agree with us, even as we make our submission today, that this is something that will make great change to this nation and create comfort. And to use the words of honorable member who has just left, is that it will bring in the calm. And just to summarize, when you look at people such as Bill Gates, who are renowned brains and business entrepreneurs, and he once said that if he was to use his last dollar, if he was to end up with only $1 in his business and he was to be asked where to put it, he would put it in PR. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What a way to close it. Whenever institutions are preparing budgets, and especially in situations like the ones we are in, austerity measures being implemented, tragically, people have been going for the communication department. It's normally the first one to suffer budget cuts. I wish they would hear what you have said in your closing remark. We really appreciate you. We appreciate the team that you have brought here today. We appreciate the presentation. We also even appreciate not just the substance, but the form of it. You've made a very good case for the bill that is before us. I'll let you know that you have a friend in this committee. This committee has also worked very hard to expedite this bill to come before us, and this committee is keen on seeing this bill through. If there are any new bills that you think we can build onto the bill, get in touch with Nuri. There could be something that you have interacted with after the fact and you would want the committee to note. We shall be ready to do that. You have partly answered the last question I wanted to ask. I won't ask it now as a question. I'll ask for you, if you're making any further submissions, to include this. And I wanted you to do a good search and spin for this committee. Find out if there are any best practices that you think this committee should have a look at, pointers to places where this has been done and has been done right. You can also point us to places where it has been done and not done as you would want it to be done. So do a good search and spin and submit that to this committee so that when we are considering the bill, we can check on best practices regionally, in the continent, and even internationally, so that we can have something to have a look at even as we are comparing these to other jurisdictions. And then finally, you can see our very good partners who are members of the Fourth Estate are in the room. And the challenge has been thrown severally by different members here. And the challenge here is the fact that if you were to look at the national discourse today, you would be very frustrated as a Kenyan. And this is not being thrown to media practitioners or the PR people. Look at any platform today in Kenya, whether it is the socials, the social medias, or whether it is the traditional media, the narrative that we have forged for this country is a very negative narrative. It's a very toxic narrative, and the tone is a lamentation tone. And this is not just for government. Even the corporate have jumped onto it. The individuals, if you look at the manner of engagement on social media, would tell you where the national psyche is. Now, narratives are a seed. When you plant a seed, it will bear fruit. So we are here. The big topic right now in terms of image building this week has been the Olympics. And everybody has someone they want to blame for the performance of the Kenya team. We are a finger-pointing nation. We are pointing it at the athletes, at their managers, at government, at the Ministry of Sports. But we've got to remind ourselves as Kenyans that these are Kenyans who we sent from this country to go and represent us. It is like a child coming from an extremely abusive home and being required to go and take an examination at school. It is a kind of place that we had put our athletes to. They were coming from a country that, where the toxicity was probably at its highest in country's history. What did we expect from these athletes? Why are we surprised by the performance? And I dare say that the team that went to Paris from Kenya did very, very well, given the circumstances. We are a country that will bastardize and bash our Olympics team. A team that is being celebrated to be number 2 globally in athletics, top in Africa. But what will they come back home to? They will come back to very bad press. So my hope and my prayer is that as we tidy up this space in public communications and public relations, that we shall be able to change the national narrative. A critique is welcome anytime. A critique is important for growth. But the negativity with which we are criticizing ourselves, we are being very harsh to ourselves as a country. We cannot expect that Brand Kenya will be able to present a different image from what we have already presented as Kenyans. It is so bad that the Kenyan on social media is lamenting and complaining and finger pointing. The Kenyan who has a privileged role in the stations, in the media, in the newsroom is doing exactly the same. And even worse, even people who hold very high positions of responsibility are not doing a better narrative. But we expect for Kenya to be seen differently. So I'm hoping as we tidy up this space, that with the coming to law of this bill, we shall be able to start having that conversation. The conversation on how do we change our narrative of Kenya. Because what we say about Kenya is how Kenya will be seen out there. We cannot expect magic to come just from you as practitioners. We might want to call upon ourselves as Kenyans to change the narrative. And it will not be a fast. When India found itself in the place we are, and coincidentally it was around the time when there were 60 years as a nation, which is exactly where we are. The PR practitioners in India took it upon themselves to change the national narrative. I would like to invite you to go and look at the media that they produced at that time, led by the Times of India. They ran a most effective, most inspirational campaign for country. They called it the case of two Indias. Powerful communication, powerful. They were able to mobilize their communicators on the day they were breaking the campaign. That campaign was carried across all the platforms as the lead story. They ran that campaign, I would imagine, for months, and everybody who is a communicator was on board. I would like to invite you to have a look at that campaign that India did. It's called The Case of Two Indias. Powerful, impactful campaign in terms of changing narratives, because I do believe that we need to run a national behavior change campaign for Kenya. This toxicity can only bear one result. If you plant one seed, it can only bear its kind. The negativity, the finger pointing, the blaming, the lamentation, that is not all we are about as Kenya. We can carry better narratives as a country, and we shall reap the fruits of those better narratives. I do appreciate your appearance here. You're a great team at this time when Kenya is looking towards rising from the ashes, like the proverbial phoenix. Great seeing you here before committee, and thank you for bringing Jesse Masai to Parliament. He was my classmate in a very beautiful class that we took on communication, and he would rightly answer the questions that were asked by Honorable Shakil as to why we have the buckets of PR, the buckets of development communication, the buckets of corporate communication, and so on. So thank you very much. And the time being 4 minutes past 2, this committee meeting stands adjourned until I shall be communicated by notice.